Next is the tight end. It's TJ Hockenson. Talked about him a couple minutes ago. A knee injury. Really good season. Tight end two, consistent, and obviously just the worst time for this to happen. So he's out. But I know, Tom, I'm sure you're going to want to talk a little bit about next year and his upcoming future.
This one hurts really, really badly. I put out a pretty detailed Instagram video on him yesterday. Go check that out. Fantasy Injury Team on Instagram. It's also on TikTok. But this is really unfortunate because Hawkinson was really moving into that, essentially looking to take over as the dominant tight end in the league, especially at least in Dynasty. A lot of people have him as their tight end one. But now in week 16, the end of the season, he suffers an ACL and MCL injury. So if we look at our factors that help predict if a player will be ready to start the following season, we're looking at the main four things. Age. He's 26. That's not a problem. It's not in his favor. It's not going against him, though. That's not going to hurt him. The time from surgery to week one. So remember, it's surgery, not injury. Time of injury, as of in a couple days ago, is about 8 months and 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks until week one. That itself is not enough time to get ready. But he hasn't had surgery yet. He probably won't for a week, maybe two, maybe three, depends. It really depends on when that swelling goes down. It's hard to predict, but the fact that it's an ACL and MCL, oftentimes that'll take a little bit longer, and he may not get surgery till next week or the week after or even the week after. So we need to look out for that surgery date because that's when the timeline starts. But at best, he's looking at about 8 months from surgery to week one.
Wow.
That is not good. That is not in his favor at all. We really want 10 plus months. 9 is okay, but we really want that 10 and a half months. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him on the field until week 6, week 8 next season. The number of tissues involved, that's a big factor as well. We just said it's ACL plus the MCL. The addition of the MCL is going to slow down the initial phases of rehab. Typically, surgeons do not want their patients weight bearing for about 2 weeks, which is different than if it's purely an ACL. So that's going to put him behind a little bit from a loss of strength standpoint. And also, you're a lot less aggressive with regaining range of motion of bending the knee. So typically, you're not getting full range of motion until 6 weeks post-op. That leaves you prone for some time for scarring and stiffness to develop, which can sometimes be a problem. That's going to be person by person. So J.K. Dobbins, that was a big issue with. That's why he needed that second procedure halfway through the season. But Javonte Williams, who also would have had similar precautions, probably even more precautions after surgery, didn't have that problem. So that is a case-by-case scenario there. And then the last thing, are they a freak athlete? I would argue, yes, he is. So his floor is going to be elevated when he returns just because he was so freaking athletic before injury. Now, if we look at some recent comps, Zach Ertz had the exact same injury pretty close to the same time last year. Ertz was, I believe it was in November, so he had about a month in his favor. But Ertz was also 5 years older, and Ertz was able to return pretty early in the season, but really hasn't played well. He, I want to say it was about a 40% drop-off in Ertz's fantasy per game fantasy points this season compared to last season. Logan Thomas had ACL recently as well, and same deal, about a 50% decline in his fantasy production in that first season after injury. So this is, I do think he will get back to his elite level of production. I just don't think it's going to be next year. I think it'll be the following season, but towards the very end of next year, he will probably be productive from a fantasy standpoint purely because there's not a whole lot of good tight ends. So he will definitely still be a touchdown. You could score a touchdown any game type, but the level that he was playing at this season, I think it's going to be 2 years before we see that again.
A lot of really great info there. It's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I always think when they get hurt this late in the year, just how much it's going to affect them this year. And I'm glad that you're here to talk us through that. But just for right now in the short term, if you are in the finals and you did have TJ Hockenson, Tom, what do you think? My best advice, I would say play it safe. Try to find a way to get some points. And I know it's so hard in the tight end landscape, but there's some guys I think that you might be able to, like even Chiggy Okonkwo, excuse me, he's had a couple decent weeks. Tucker Kraft from the Packers has been okay. Cole Kmet, I think he's an elite level replacement tight end. There are some guys out there, but right tight end, you can't possibly like get a guy that's going to get you 6 or 7, right, and then let the rest of your team try to do it because it's so hard to come by, right?
Yeah,
Especially losing TJ.
absolutely.